Right, g'day guys. Thank you for joining me on this lecture or this video, this presentation. I know, like I said in the previous video, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to switch from Instagram to this platform, or if you're new to this platform, I encourage you, please have a look at my old content so you can get a bit of an idea about who I am and what I'm about. But look, this is the sort of presentation today, the sort of thing that is a bit more educational in nature, and I want to give you guys some more clarity around what your situation may be, the kind of things that you may be experiencing, and I want you to understand how common some of these experiences are. So today is not necessarily a problem solving presentation. It's more just to give you an idea about what you're experiencing and maybe where it comes from, and then how it can affect you. And I want you to understand that a lot of people go through the exact same thing that you're potentially going through right now. So let's have a little look see. And this is just some stuff that I came up with purely based on my own experience. But as with all the things that I do, if I were to go somewhere in the psychological literature, maybe philosophically, intellectually, there are places that probably already have this kind of stuff documented in a much more in depth way that I'm able to present, and that's what we call grounded theory, which is essentially what I do. I'll take my human experience, I'll write it down, I'll codify it in some way, and then through design or by accident later on, I'll find out that it's already somewhere else. It's already been done previously, or it's been around for hundreds of years or thousands of years potentially, and I find that fascinating. So that's why I say and I present these things with full confidence, because yes, I base them on purely my own experience, but I've later had them confirmed by all sorts of other people, whether it's by their own experience or in the literature, and it's something that's very common. So yeah, if you've experienced this, then please look. I encourage you to write a comment or something on. Yes, it gives me algorithm, and I can be in front of more people and help more people. But this is a job. This is a vocation that I've chosen. That we don't. I don't always get thanks and congratulations and claps and adulation and that type of stuff. So for people to give me a bit of a pat on the back every now and then, or at least say, "Hey, man, thank you for the video," or I've experienced that as well. That's a huge, huge thing for me, because it can be a little bit of an isolating sort of career that I've chosen to sit here and choose extreme vulnerability in the name of helping other people. So, yeah, I mean, look, if you want to do anything like that, send me a DM, or make a comment on YouTube or share it or whatever it is. I know that sounds cheesy and salesy, but that's the sort of stuff that I've got to do in order to get in front of people and help them and achieve my mission, which is to stop suicides and crisis in the military and first responder world. Because I've seen too much, and so have you guys, and that's why you're watching this video. So I thank you in advance. Anyway, let's get on to this one, right? So today is what I call the pain, shame, and blame cycle. And now this is something that I have codified and written down through a lot of painful experience particularly the last few years. It's not something I noticed in the early days. It's very late in my journey when it came to crisis and suicidal ideation. This is something I've sort of come up with in the last couple of years, and the before I talk about where it came from and how I sort of came up with it, I want to go through a few definitions, because I think that's very important. There's only three words. So let's just define them very quickly. Now, pain can obviously be emotional or physical pain. And what I want to define pain as for the purpose of this presentation is it's just an internal alert system. It's not a sign to run away necessarily. But as you can see, the next point is the fight, flight, freeze response. So sometimes your physical or even your emotional pain can trigger your central nervous system. And I'm not going to get into the, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, but because some of the stuff is too complex for me to want to explain, I think people can get lost in those lengthy explanations. But it pain can trigger your fight, flight, freeze response. And if you've had a particular type of response like that triggered over and over and over through the years, or that particular pain that you've had the button pressed on has been prevalent for a long time, that fight, flight, or freeze response that you are typically going to exhibit is going to flare up when you experience different types of pain. And I want you to know that that is totally normal. But I think a healthier way to look at it, or a healthy attachment to the definition of pain here, is that it is a problem to be solved, right? Whether you flight in order to go and solve that problem later, lick your wounds, recover, and then come back, and to avoid death or more pain, excessive pain, for example, or if it's the fight, right? You're like, I need to protect myself and defend myself, and that's sometimes we lash out. We'll talk about that a bit later. And other times it might be like a freeze. It's like, hey, stop doing that. Whatever you're doing right now, you need to stop doing that because it's going to cause more pain. So that's what I mean. Whereas it's an alert system that's going to tell you, hey, maybe fighting, flight, or freeze response is the best thing to do experiencing this pain. But the way I like to frame it is that, that's a problem to be solved, and you might want to use fighting, flighting, or freezing to solve that problem, as long as you do solve it. The next one is shame. Now, if you've not encountered shame before, I encourage you to look back through my content and look at the toxic and guiding guilt and shame video. And I'll break shame, guilt down a lot more, and especially when it comes to guiding and toxic. But I'll give you a very brief definition of shame here. So, shame is an I am statement. It's a statement about your value system or about who you are inherently. And that's where the distinction needs to be made between toxic shame and guiding shame. Now, toxic shame is a common term out there. That's common vernacular in the psychological, philosophical literature. But guiding shame is not. I'm fairly certain I came up with the term guiding shame. So let's start with toxic. Excuse me. So toxic shame is an I am belief that cannot be atoned for. It's I am XYZ, I am bad, I am broken, whatever. And it's something that cannot be fixed. It cannot be atoned for. And in your mind, in your belief system, you are permanently this thing. Whereas guiding shame is the healthy version of shame. And I think shame is unavoidable. So that's why I've made a distinction between toxic and guiding. So guiding shame is alignment with your values. It's simply a reminder to you. It's like, hey, this thing you've done or this thing you're experiencing is not who and what you want to be and who and what you should be. So here's a little nudge. Here's a bit of a painful emotion to get you back on track with where you should, could, and will be. And when we dig into this a little bit later in some future videos, I want to talk a bit about how that helps you get back to your value system, or maybe what I call the code of honor, for example. So let's get past shame now. Last word, which is blame. Something or someone to affix guilt or punishment to. Now, guilt and punishment for us in our world, the military first responder world, we're great at looking for the enemy. We're great at looking for the bad guys, someone to blame so that we can then punish them. Exact the punishment, which is the job that we've chosen to do. Whether it's in my old job, you go and pursue people and you kill them, engage them, or if it's maybe the cops, for example, you go and pursue the bad guys, you arrest them, right? You've got guilt and then punishment. But there is another form, and that is, or two forms rather, and that's the internal or external blame. Now, it's fairly self-explanatory, the implosion or the explosion. So internal blame is imploding. All the guilt and the punishment get put back on yourself, and that's a self-inflicted guilt and punishment. So you blame yourself, and that obviously comes from shame. And the other one is external. So that's the explosion, right? So it's like, I find that can be an avoidance tactic. So you're like, this shameful thing has happened. I need to blame somebody. I've got to make sure that it's somebody else's fault so that I don't have to take ownership. And I think that comes from you experiencing shame, or the shame and the pain of the emotion or the thing that you've experienced, and you want to avoid that, not on purpose necessarily, but it's a self-protection mechanism, which means, hey, fuck, I don't like that. That is not a good emotion. That's not a good feeling. I don't like being made to feel like this is my fault. So I'm going to externalize this. And that comes in the form of, the fucking army, it's their fault, or it's the cops, the job broke me, or, society doesn't understand me, or it's my ex-wife's fault, or whatever it is, right? So that's that blaming other people. So now let's get into a little bit more of an explanation about the actual pain, shame, blame cycle. So let's have a little look-see at how this thing is just this never-ending circle, right? So remember my last video, we talked about experience, belief, and behavior. You have experiences in life, lots of them, or really intense experiences that causes us to then believe something about ourselves or the world. And then we go and act in a certain way based on that belief. And sometimes it's the way that we treat ourselves, sometimes it's the way we treat other people. So when it comes to pain, pain is just an experience. You'll have an experience, you'll then have a belief about that. Oh, sorry, you'll have an experience. So from pain, you have the experience, which then goes to shame, right? And the shame then turns into a belief, right? I am broken. I am in pain. I am whatever it is. And then you can look for someone to blame, whether it's yourself or other people. And that is the behavior. And the behavior is what keeps this cycle going and going. And sometimes it's a physical behavior. You get out there and you talk to people, you yell at your family, you have conflict in your job, for example, organizational stress, which then leads to more pain, whether it's the same pain or a different pain, which then leads to more shame, more blame, pain, shame, blame, and you go around and around and around. So as you can see, it's the same as the experience, belief, behavior paradigm. You have an experience, you then form a belief, it then dictates your behavior, which then confirms, which then makes you repeat or look for or experience the same thing, confirming your belief, and then your behavior then results again. So it's circle, circle, circle. So I want to give you, this is the very first example of how I came to discover this thing and essentially map it the way that I have. And I'm going to give you the three examples that were the most prevalent to me in the last sort of, 3 years, for example. And, far from that place of depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation that it was years ago, but it's painful nonetheless. So the initial pain for me, believe it or not, was when I used to do the dishes at night. I just had this thing that I had to do the dishes at night. Dinner's done, girls are in bed, I have to do the dishes so that they're clean for tomorrow morning. Now, I've had a lot of back pain over the years, partly psychosomatic, but a lot of it is just physical injury from my time in the military, 12 years of running around, jumping out of planes, shooting stuff, getting shot at, gun overseas, whatever it is, right? So there's a lot of back pain associated with that kind of job, carrying heavy gear, etc. So I'd find myself standing at the sink, cleaning up these dishes, and right at the end of the day, after all the activity that we've been doing, picking up the girls, cleaning, whatever, my back pain would really flare up. And it was at the time when I was doing dishes. And it would really send me into this. I had this really angry mentality about it. And I was like, well, I'm just broken. I'm like, I'm not the guy that I used to be. I am broken. I am fundamentally not who and what I want to be. And it was all because of my back pain, and it was all because of the military, and then all this other stuff would go through my head. And I start getting angry at the dishes, these fucking dishes, I got to stand here and hurt my back, and what's the point, da 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 da. So I go into this blame cycle, and I would start to think, I'm like, I've got this back pain, and I go to, I've done chiro, I've done physio, I've done remedial massage, I've got the different types of needling, dry needling, and acupuncture, whatever, and none of it seemed to help, right? None of it. And I've seen an exercise physiologist, and nothing was helping, or it would be better for a bit and then come back again, and then that would then in turn psychologically make my back pain even worse. And I'm not going to go too much into how that works psychologically in the body and how pain gets released through the brain, etc. But it would then make me repeat that cycle. I get more and more frustrated about doing the dishes, so my back pain would flare up, which would confirm this belief that I was broken. And then I would get angry, so I would go external. My blame was external. I'd blame other people and other things for my back pain, right? So that's one example. Here's another one. To be honest, this one was probably the most psychologically painful for me, because anything to do with my daughters or my family and the shame associated with that was a real pain button for me. You know what I mean? It would cause me the most anguish. So, for example, I might get in the earlier days of when my kids were a lot younger and life was a lot more stressful. I might lose my biscuit a couple of times and yell at my kids, or get overly angry or be over anxious, rush them, whatever, and get angry and frustrated with my kids. And that was that pain to me. It was that psychological pain of the stress of the day. And then I would feel that shame that I was like a perpetrator, like I'd done something wrong and I'd done something bad to them, and I was hurting my kids, not physically, but I was like emotionally damaging or hurting my kids. And then I would feel like, and that was my belief, that I'm a bad dad. And that was hands down in all the stuff that I've been through in the military, civil life, childhood, everything. That was the most painful experience that I've ever had, was this belief that I had that I was a bad dad. Horrible. And I'll talk about that in some other videos at some point. I think it's my next one, actually, specifically for dads who feel that emotion. And then I would go into this blame thing. And for me, the blame was internal, right? It was that because I believed that I was a bad dad, I was like, well, I shouldn't be here. I've got to isolate myself from my kids. I've got to be away from them because I'm the bad dad and I'm bad for my children and I'm going to damage them. So I've got to get out of here, right? And as you can tell, I would go back up to the pain thing where I'd think about the psychological pain of thinking about what I've done. And then it would go back to the shame thing. Oh, I'm a bad dad. Then it was a blame thing. I'm so bad and I shouldn't be here. And it was cycle, cycle, cycle. And for me, I would go and hide in my room. I'd tell my wife, or I wouldn't tell her, and I'd just storm off and sit in my room and just sulk about what a bad dad I was. And the girls would be like, "Oh, mummy, where's daddy going? What's going on?" Da da da. And that would exacerbate things. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to go too much into that one because I will in a separate presentation. Now, here's another one. And this was probably one of the earliest forms, and I've done this one retrospectively, but back when I was in the military, because I was in a special operations unit, I had this expectation about who and what I should be. And some of that, fair enough. Yes, you should be and expect to be and strive to be a certain kind of person in those kind of jobs. But because after I went through a traumatic divorce, I experienced a significant amount of depression, and it was nothing to do with my workplace. It wasn't inflicted on me by the military, but um, I would believe my belief after having my depression, which ended up being a chemical depression about lack of serotonin in my brain. And the belief that I had was that I was weak. I was weak and that I didn't deserve to be in this workplace, that I was weaker than all the other guys. I was lesser than. I am weak was the belief. So then we look at we look at what blame looks like in that scenario. And for me, I blamed myself. And the blame and the punishment was I don't deserve happiness. I've got depression, which means I'm weak, which means I don't deserve to be happy and have the good things in life, or even particularly, maybe I should have written that there, I don't deserve my career, for example. So I would isolate from the guys at work, or I would hide this mental health condition that I had, this depression. And obviously, it got so bad eventually that it led to a suicide attempt in 2018, for those of you who don't know. And then, when you're sitting there in that blame thing and you're attacking yourself, it just leads to more depression, leads to more of the pain that caused that thing in the first place, which then confirms my own belief. I am weak. Then I believe that even more. So I punish myself and isolate myself even more. I don't deserve happiness. Depression, I am weak, don't deserve happiness. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And that's the cycle we go through, boys and girls, and it's so common. So as much as I said this presentation is more for educational and informative purposes and for you to gain a bit of clarity around your situation, I do want to very, very briefly touch on what I think the solution is to break this cycle. Now, I know that I don't have a lot of pictures in my presentations, and that's something that I do aim to fix. And when I do the speaking engagements, I've got a lot more pictures and there's a lot more visual stimulation. These are a little bit dry, I know, and I'll make them a bit more interesting. But and that's why I hesitate to offer solutions. A, because it's a lot more complex than I can summarize in a presentation like this. And B, I don't find that conveying how to fix a problem in this kind of media, behind a camera, just using a bunch of, visuals like this is the best way to convey that message. But I will nonetheless. And here it is. I think that the solutions or the way to come to terms or at least break this pain, shame, blame cycle, or at least make it more healthy, is you've got to start with the pain. Whatever pain you're experiencing, you need to know that pain is physical, emotional, whatever it is. You need to accept it. It doesn't mean I give up. It doesn't mean I surrender. Yeah, I got this pain forever and I'm not going to do anything about it. It means bam, right this second, right here, this part of my life, today, tomorrow, this week, whatever it is, this phase of my life, I've got this pain. It's here. It's real. And right this second, it's not going away. and I've got to accept it, and I've got to own it and live with it, right? Again, I don't want you to think that that means that we're not going to solve it, that we're not going to do something about it. It just means step one, acceptance. It's like the 12 steps of being addiction or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure the first step is acceptance, right? I got this thing. I'm an alcoholic. You need to admit it. I've got this back pain, right? I have depression, or I experience this significant amount of emotional distress when I get frustrated with my daughters, for example. And I think that's a very important part leading to that shame, because that's going to make the difference between the guiding or the toxic shame, right? And the difference between guiding and toxic shame in this scenario is compassion. Compassion for yourself. So look back at the pain, it's the acceptance. It's like, yeah, I'm a human being. I experience pain. I'm going to make all sorts of mistakes. So then we go to the shame bit. And instead of being toxic, I am permanently broken. It means, hey, man, I've got this back pain, I've got this physical pain, I've got this emotional pain, I fucked up and made a mistake. That's not okay. That's not where I want to be. Where do I want to be? Let's look at the next fucking thing. Let's look at where this is trying to guide me and where it's trying to take me in my life. What's this thing trying to tell me? What's the message it's trying to deliver to me? And that's that guiding shame, right? You're going to experience the pain, the shame, and the blame regardless. Okay. I think the blame is the thing that we reduce the most in this process. So let's skip to the blame. So now let's look at the blame, right? And the best way to do this is not by internal or external blame, it's by ownership. Now, I know that term gets thrown around a lot, and I think what we do really well in our community, like I said at the beginning, is we can find an enemy, we can find the bad guy. And when we find them, we become the judge, jury, and executioner. Sometimes literally. So instead of looking at ourselves or other people and going, yeah, you're the bad guy, I'm going to fucking punish you, I'm going to take this out on you, you need to be held accountable, or I'm the bad guy because I did this. We go, hey, man, I'm going to take ownership of this thing. This is my thing. I don't like, it's the acceptance part. I've got it. This is my pain. The shame thing, it's not what I want. It's trying to tell me to go somewhere better. The ownership part is what you do with it. This now affects and changes your behavior. You go, okay, man, yeah, I got some back pain. Yeah, I yelled at my daughters. Or, yeah, I had depression. So what do I do about it? You don't need to punish people when you take ownership, right? You don't have to assign ownership to someone else. You need to take ownership of your part in whether it's the problem, and that's just the acceptance part, or ownership of what you are going to do about it. So what do you do now, right? You've accepted it. That pain is there. The shame, yeah, it's not where I want to be. Ownership, what am I going to do? And that's how you complete that cycle in a healthy way. Because that cycle is going to happen no matter what, right? But it's going to be far less painful, and you're going to turn it into something useful that goes somewhere and helps you. Look at the shame part. This is where you need to focus right now. You need to be guided where you are supposed to be, where you want to be, and where you should be in life. Who and what you should be, where and what you want to do. Where you want to be, what you want to do. So accept that pain, guys. It's a reality. Sometimes, especially physical pain, you cannot deny it. You got it, doesn't mean it's permanent, doesn't mean you do nothing about it, doesn't mean you just suck it up and forget about it, but you've got it. It's there. Shame. This is not who and what I want to be and where I want to go and what I want to do. So let this pain, this emotional shame, guide you to the next part. And the next part is the ownership. Yep, this is my thing, man. Here's my part that I played in the beginning of this thing, or here's now my part that I'm going to play in the solution to this thing. So that's it, guys. Look, as usual, I'm going to let the video auto play at the ends with the thank yous and stuff. But while I'm here and I got I'm looking into the camera. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I massively appreciate it. And like I said, not some sleazy sales tactic where I'm selling online courses or some coaching bullshit. I want you to engage with my content, like the page, comments, thank you, I appreciate it, or, whatever it is, or hey, this is how I've thought about this thing, for example, because it's nice for me to have a little boost too, to make sure that I know as much as I already do know because I've had lots of confirmation, it's always nice for me to know that I'm on the right path and I'm still helping people and that my stuff is still relevant and I'm still doing the right things. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. I'll let this outro play itself. Cheers. Thank you for supporting my mission to prevent suicide and crisis in the military and first responder community. If you want to support me more, please subscribe to the Origin Initiative YouTube channel, and you can also help me achieve my mission by having me speak to your community or organisation about self-care and emotional well-being. You can find contact details in the bio. Thanks for watching.